Hey guys, it's God Bars here, the self-proclaimed hip-hop historian, and this is the 239th episode of my series where I grab a vinyl from my collection, talk about why I love it, what influence it has, and what its place is in the grand scheme of hip-hop. So while I've covered a couple common albums that I'll link the reviews for down below in the description, like 2000s like Water for Chocolate or 2005's B, it's been about 100 uploads since I last talked about this legend, and I figured a good place to pick up where I left off would be his 1994 sophomore LP, Resurrection. This release came just a couple of years after this legend's debut album, 1992's Can I Borrow a Dollar, which is a super underrated introductory project. In fact, I kind of feel like it only tends to get overlooked because Common, or Common Sense as he was known at the time, hadn't quite found himself as an artist and MC at this point. While the debut featured pretty speedy flows and a more general sound, the growth between his first and second LP is tangible, and it ultimately played a large role in dictating the future path his career would end up taking. Of course, this was a bit before he would get the ball rolling on his acting career or tendencies for activism, and it was even a couple years before his back and forth with Ice Cube and the rest of West Side Connection. Though it was actually a song off his second album here that sparked that beef, that being his massive single I Used to Love Her, which many would argue is still the biggest song this legend has to his name. However, this isn't just a top tier song for Common's discography. In fact, I would say this masterpiece doubles as one of hip hop's best love songs, as well as one of its most well penned concept tracks. Basically, the idea behind this story sees Common paint a picture of a girlfriend that he stays with through hardships and turmoil, but he puts a genius spin on it by making the girl a representation or embodiment of hip hop as a genre and culture, and how it relates to him through personal experience, which would already be a pretty forward thinking and original concept on its own. But I feel like this single really comes to life through its execution, and the smooth, jazzy, and timeless instrumental doesn't hurt either. You may be wondering how a song like this could result in a beef with Ice Cube, Mac 10, and Dub C, and the answer lies a little ways into I Used to Love Her, where a few lines about hip hop going over to the West Coast were sort of misinterpreted and taken the wrong way, which served as an impetus for the back and forth between these two titans of the culture, who ironically ended up having kind of similar trajectories into activism as well as TV and movies. Common has never hid or shied away from his past, and while I'm not sure if it's fair to say that he was an actual gang member, he's been pretty transparent about his past affiliations and how he spent a good amount of his youth and upbringing within a close proximity to gangbanging. This element was definitely a bit more prevalent in his debut LP, which kind of makes sense considering he was still young and finding his place in the world, but the soul searching that seemed to have taken place after the release of Can I Borrow a Dollar led to Common broadening his horizons, partially through listening to artists like John Coltrane, as well as reading and learning about an array of subjects, which included everything from religious ideology to race relations and African American history. I think there's a noticeable swell in confidence between these first couple of projects as well, and that most likely can be attributed to not just the growth and mental maturity, but a sense of self that he was beginning to develop through finding his place as an artist, and knowing what direction he wanted to take his budding career in. It's kind of interesting to see how some of these albums were received upon release compared to a bit down the line, like with Resurrection, for example, where it was initially given 3.5 mics in the source when it came out, but only 4 years later, it would pop up on their list for the top 100 best hip hop albums. Another cool piece of this dude's legacy that I don't think everyone's aware of is how production guru and mentor No ID was a very frequent collaborator and close friend of Common's back in these days, to the point he actually produced 13 of the 15 songs on this thing, with the remaining two being handled by Why Not. While pretty much all his other work has at least one or two guest appearances, this project is strictly 100% common when it comes to the vocal performances, and it's definitely commendable that he was able to create such a memorable and timeless experience without having even a single feature included. When it comes to my top three favorite songs overall on this one, I'm gonna skip over I Used to Love Her for obvious reasons, and instead narrow it down to the title track, Orange Pineapple Juice, and Some Shit I Wrote. Then for my honorable mentions, I decided to shout out tracks like This Is Me, Book of Life, Nothing to Do, Chapter 13, Rich Man vs. Poor Man, In My Own World, Check the Method, Watermelon, and Maintaining. Thank you for watching my 239th video. Next up, we're covering another act out of the legendary Bootcamp clique, so check for that one, and if you enjoyed, be sure to like, subscribe, and let me know what songs you enjoy the most off this career-shifting album. Don't forget to have a great day, and I'll see you next time, okay? Alright.
Look, the key to my soul is locked in the cage it opens. The framework was made from my own rib cue. What came first, the crack of the crack lighter? Whichever one the first fiend used to bring back fire.